Good morning. It is May 18th, 2026, or afternoon, depending on where you are, and you are listening to The Mind of Sai Marie. Today, we are ditching the shapewear, letting our magic fly completely free, and stepping into worlds where women refuse to behave and the romance is delightfully spicy. Joining me is the powerhouse urban fantasy and paranormal women's fiction author, Deborah Wilde. Deborah, it is an absolute pleasure to have you at the table here today. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me.
So, I have to start with how you describe yourself on your bio: a hopeless romantic, a total cynic, and a writer with a completely broken edit button. That feels like the ultimate recipe for crafting the exact kind of fierce, laugh out loud urban fantasy your fans obsess over. How does that daily, unfiltered connection to your own inner cynic influence your creative process when you're dreaming up these kick ass heroines?
I think that because I came from a family where we used humor to really filter our experiences in the world, that's what I continue to do with my characters. So, because I'm writing in first person POV, I'm very much in their mindset. And so, the way I process the world becomes how they navigate their experiences as well, and that is predominantly through humor. Though one of the things that's really important to me is, as cynical as I am, I'm not interested in punching down. So, it can be observational, it can be funny about the world, but I don't want to punch down on other characters or situations.
Before you were dominating the indie book world, you spent 12 years working as a screenwriter. Moving from writing for the screen to crafting massive multi book fantasy series is a magnificent leap. At what point did your screenwriting background help you master the pacing required to keep an urban fantasy plot moving at an absolute breakneck speed?
I think there's a few things that really helped. I mean, with screenwriting, structure is king. So I was very comfortable with structure and storytelling. And I actually joke that I don't know how to write books. I just write very long prose screenplays. I think the other thing that helped is when I was writing predominantly for television, and this was for cable. So I had to be able to write hooks to commercials so that if somebody's gonna they hit the commercial, they turn to go see something else, why do they want to turn back and come keep watching our show? So that really helped me with chapter endings as well. How do I hook those chapter endings to make sure the reader, tomorrow morning or in 4 days from now is going to pick up the book and keep going from that point?
In your hit Magic After Midlife series, we follow Miriam Feldman, who is middle aged, divorced, and hormonally imbalanced, as she suddenly inherits immense magic. You've blended beautifully laugh out loud snark with paranormal women's fiction here. What was the spark behind creating a world where midlife isn't a crisis but a magical awakening? And how did you approach making Miriam's journey feel so authentic and relatable for women?
For me, it was about hitting my own 40s and really feeling that an invisibility and a marginalization myself. I used to teach screenwriting as well. And I remember one day sitting in class workshopping a student's piece, and most of the people were arguing that the woman in her 40s who is the object of desire in this script, it just wasn't true. They'd go for a younger woman. And I remember just thinking, that's not the case. This is a great character, and come on. So there might have been a bit of let's prove these people wrong. But it was also a really fascinating place for me to start, that she feels invisible. She has invisibility magic. And then the nice twist to that is, when you have invisibility magic, no one sees you coming. So it really allows this empowerment story.
So you don't shy away from complex dynamics, I noticed, especially in your Bedeviled AF series with Aviva Flesher, where an ancient healing ritual goes nuclear in Vancouver and the enemies to lovers romance takes center stage. Tell us about the importance of writing dynamic, slow burn relationships where the heroine maintains her complete autonomy even when facing a sexy nemesis or a grumpy French wolf shifter.
The joy of writing my women is not that they are looking for completion, it's that they're going to stand toe to toe with these infuriating males. So, again, a big part of my upbringing was a steady diet of old Hollywood screwball comedies with characters, like Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant and His Girl Friday, like just going at it, but each really holding their own. And so I have a very deep love of that dynamic, and I really enjoy playing it out in different ways in my books.
I love that.
Thank you.
So, you also work heavily with direct to consumer publishing, building an empire with your own books, signed copies, and incredible merch directly for your community. I'm deeply curious how taking complete control of your creative business has allowed you to protect your artistic voice and push the boundaries of what urban fantasy can be.
I think what it's done is it's allowed me to build more direct relationships with my readers rather than perhaps pushing the boundaries of urban fantasy. I think I was always going to write the stories I love writing. I'm not one of those people who can spy a trend and jump on it and also write quickly enough to capitalize on it. I write the stories I want to tell. I remember I actually did my master's thesis on the animation of Chuck Jones, which was he was one of the main animators of Bugs Bunny, and I got to interview him a few times. I was very lucky in that regards. And one of the things he said that always stuck with me is that they weren't writing stories for kids, they were writing stories for themselves that they wanted to tell and wanted to see told. And that's, I'm doing that as well. I'm telling stories I want to write and I want to tell, and trying to do them in a way that it's going to connect to an audience and not just be self-indulgent. But the nice thing about selling direct and having my own store as well as all these other wide retailers is it's another way for me to engage with my readers. And so to also find out, what they think. Are they having fun? Are they laughing? How do my characters speak to them? I don't get that from people who are buying my stuff through, say, Amazon.
And that's the perfect way to build that more intersectional and, where you have the fans really coming in because they feel like they're getting a closer, more intimate setting. I really love that. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So, we've been discussing the unfiltered snark, independent women, and magnificent world building in your urban fantasy series. Deborah, for those who are just stepping into your magical universes for the very first time, what is the core message or feeling that you hope they carry away from this epic badassery of your characters?
That is an excellent question. I think I want them to come away feeling like they've gone on an adventure with a very smart, very funny, very flawed woman, who has places to grow, who has is fiercely loyal, fiercely complicated, and that at the end of the day, they feel swoons, they laugh a lot, and our world can be a tough place right now for a lot of people. And I just hope I can bring some laughter into people's lives.
I think that's what everybody needs right now.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, we have to talk about Nava Katz, your unlikable demon hunter who started it all. Whether it's Nava Ashira in the Jezebel Files or Miriam throwing shade, you clearly love a heroine who refuses to apologize for taking up space. Why is that unapologetic personal sovereignty such a vital and powerful theme for you to put out into the world?
I think I can explain it by telling you where Nava came from. At the time, I had been reading a lot of articles for some reason about how fictional male characters could be complicated and nuanced, like people like Tony Soprano and Dexter, and but female fictional characters had to be likable. And it just got my hackles up. Like, I was just like, come on, there has to be more room, than this. So I came up with Nava, who she's my youngest character. She's 20 when the books start. And she is my biggest hot mess. But that was very deliberately so, because when I thought about how I was going to chart her development, she needed to have the most room to grow. So, I just wanted to prove, what, women, you're going to call this unlikable. I'm going to disagree and prove you wrong. I think me proving people wrong, I think that there seems to be a pattern there now that I'm saying all this out loud. But I do feel, there has to be room for these messy, complicated women. Of course there does.
I completely agree. I have a nearly 25-year-old daughter, and she loves books like yours. That's exactly up her alley. So I will be referring her to you. But
Oh,
it's specifically because she doesn't like soft, like, not that soft feminine characters are bad, but she says there's been such an oversaturation. She prefers those bold women. And what I really love about your series is it's very common to see an awakening with like teenagers or young adults, new adults into their magic, and you've
mhm.
kind of flipped the script entirely, and I think that's amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, for everyone listening who is ready to dive into these hilarious, sexy, and pulse pounding adventures, do yourself a massive favor and get your hands on these books. I mean, obviously, they're great, especially my birthday's in 2 weeks and I'm going to be 42. So, this is the kind of stuff that I want to be reading.
Excellent. Happy early birthday.
Yes. Get your hands on these books, from the Magic Afterlife Midlife box sets to the complete Bedeviled AF series. Her books are available worldwide in ebook, print, and audiobooks. And you can bypass the middleman by buying directly from her, plus find signed paperbacks and epic urban fantasy merchandise at deborahwilde.com. So go grab your
Well,
copies. Okay. I will have the link to this in the show description notes, so it will make it easy for people to be able to go ahead and just go click on it and see what she's got. Yeah, Deborah, thank you so much for sitting down and sharing your magic with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for these great questions.
To my listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Mind of Sai Marie. Until next time, keep your boundaries firm, your wit sharp, and remember, the mind is the most important story that we'll ever tell.